2 weeks ago, I issued a survey because I wanted to know more about you. I only asked 4 questions, but it told me a lot about your inclusion journey. I'm Dr. Jonathan. I work with organizations to make them inclusive, and I'm on a mission to help 1 million people like you to make your workplace inclusive. Get your pen and paper ready because we're discussing what I learned about you and your inclusion journey. I talk about research, I talk about books, I talk about articles, and it's all for a reason. All of it. Most of the time, I'm behind the mic. Most of the time, I'm in front of the camera. But you're the person in the room who gets all the attention. I'm paying attention to you so that I can help you on your inclusion journey. You know this because the only reason we've got 5 types of show is because you asked for it. You know this because the only reason we've got a book club is because you asked for it. You know this because the only reason we've got the book insights is because you asked for it. 2 weeks ago, I decided to ask more questions so that I could better serve you. I'm sitting on a mountain of content, a real mountain of value, and I want to tailor the support that I provide to you so that it better suits your needs. Why? Because one of the 7 common mistakes that organizations make on their inclusion journey, Bristol, the O stands for one size. Organizations use a one-size-fits-all approach to issues of diversity, equity, inclusion. I don't want to make that mistake any more than I want you to make that mistake. So I did what researchers call a quick and dirty survey. It was even more basic than that. I asked 4 questions. 1, what is your current role at work? 2, what is your organization doing to create an inclusive workplace? 3, what are you struggling with most on your inclusion journey? And 4, what would you need to change to make your organization more inclusive? I should say I also have the benefit of speaking to many of you. I also have the benefit of working with organizations. I also have the benefit of hundreds of hours of content that I create here. Thousands of minutes of interviews that we've conducted. So I'm not starting from a blank slate. I've got a massive head start. I'm going to be keeping this very top level, but know that I'm going to use this to provide you with more additional support in the near future. Keep in mind, we are 2 weeks away from our 6th birthday and less than 5 episodes away from episode 300. So I'm going to be making some wicked and wild offers to you, and this is going to help me to do that. So here's a high-level review of what I learned. 1, what is your current role at work? Well, most of you fall into 4 categories. 1 is a DEI leader. This means you're the person who has direct responsibility for building inclusion where you work. This is your day job. This is a multifaceted role that no one truly understands and very few people truly respect. Sometimes you feel as if you're in a constant state of reinvention. Lots of people who responded had words like chief and director in their title, and I also include the ones that don't. For example, one person who responded was retired and volunteered on what they called an EDIJ committee. So that's DEI leaders. 2nd is HR leader. You may have direct responsibility for building inclusion where you work, on top of your responsibility for all things human resources. Where you don't, it's necessary for you to have a working relationship with the person who does have responsibility for building inclusion where you work. Now, this relationship is not always easy. It's easier for you when this person reports into you, and we can see why. It's more challenging when they don't. Not enough people talk about it, but there is a tension there. Now, the job titles varied from HR partner to people manager and everything in between. So that's HR leaders. 3 is everyday leaders. This is a real sweet spot. This means you are the driver of positive change where you work. Your actions nurture the character of your organization. You know you must become more in order to succeed, and you're looking for insights to inform your development. You make inclusion your business at work. It's likely that you have no formal responsibility for doing any of this. You may not even be called a leader, but you are the person everyone's trying to influence. You know when I say, I'm on a mission to help 1 million people like you to make your workplace inclusive. I'm trying to get 1 million people to behave more like you. The 4th and final one is a DEI or HR consultant. These are people who get paid to help the people in the first 3 categories. Some of them have been at it a while, some of them are new, some of them are disillusioned. Some of these people, they actually think of me as a competitor. The smart ones think of me as a colleague. Personally, despite all the talk about belonging and collaboration, I don't see as much of it in the DEI space as I see in other fields, and I wish there was more. All this tells me that not enough people buy into the message of diversity and inclusion themselves. The second question I asked is, what is your organization doing to create an inclusive workplace? What was interesting was the responses read like a maturity model. And I spoke about this last week. Maturity models are frameworks for measuring an organization's maturity in discipline X. In our case, inclusion. Now, they typically have 4 or 5 steps. Here, I identified 4 stages. 1, we are implementing a comprehensive strategy. One person said, and this is a quote, "We're deploying a multi-part EDI strategy that supports employee differences, provides accommodations, and supports human rights, created from 5 core values and a set of fundamental behaviors." Some people thought they were doing so much that they couldn't even write it down. The second stage is, we've got a few initiatives in place, but not everything is aligned. For some people, this was monthly team calls with DEI speakers. For others, it was, and this is a quote, "cherry picking with dimensions of diversity it wants to celebrate." Other people had staff networks, and they said that the bulk of this work rests with HR. There was a lot of space here. I could go deeper another day. Most of you were here or in the next stage. And that was, we want to do something, but we're figuring out where to start. And to be honest, I really need to rename this. This was less about figuring it out and more about frustration. People were frustrated that nothing was happening, even though it was implied or promised. It was all about having a fake diversity promise. One person said, and this is a quote, "The DEI staff group I sit on are very frustrated. The company has been dragging its feet to start the work." Someone else said, "I don't know, I'm not invited to company meetings." There was a promise of momentum, the organization wasn't paying it off, and this meant that people were really frustrated. The fourth and final stage is, we are making people aware, but no firm action yet. This is where people talked about awareness, making people aware of the issues. One person said, "Too much talk and not enough actually making a difference." And I want to make something clear here. I'm not talking about scams or the old bait and switch, saying one thing and doing another. I'm not talking about that. It's more useful to think of this in the maturity model sense. These are organizations who haven't started, and they're not pretending that they've started. They're not there yet. They're just talking about it. The third question I asked is, what are you struggling with most on your inclusion journey? And 2 of the answers reflected what we talk about a lot. We call it the 3 biggest problems: people, potential, performance. People. Organizations have trouble engaging the people they want to include. Potential. Organizations struggle to create a culture of inclusion where everyone can reach their potential. And performance. Organizations find it difficult to articulate a business case for diversity for their specific organization. What came up a lot was culture, potential. And this is what someone said. They wanted a change of culture and behaviors to ensure that it was safe to work. They wanted a real life culture shift. And then there was people, engaging the people you want to include. Someone else said that they wanted to ensure that it's real and meaningful in my store for my team. Now, I want to focus on something that came up so much that it couldn't be ignored. And this was getting buy-in from senior leaders. This was a consistent issue. This came up so many times. People said senior leadership buy-in, executive buy-in, swaying the minds of disconnected senior individuals. This kept coming up. And I want to impress on you that the so-called business case for diversity hasn't convinced these senior leaders. The rhetorical problem of diversity and inclusion, this hasn't helped either. The emotional pleas, the guilt, the shaming, it's not working. Not in theory, in real life, for people just like you. When I asked what they would need to change to make their organizations more inclusive, they spoke about the 3 biggest problems. They spoke about the issues. It was always about getting buy-in from senior leaders, changing the culture, building accountability. You spoke about the 3 biggest problems, even if you didn't know that I was saying it. This is why I like evidence-based inclusion for you. It's a thorough system for making better decisions that considers the scientific literature, data from your organization, the stakeholders affected by the answer to the question, the issues you want to deal with, and professional expertise. All of these things make it easier to address the 3 biggest problems. We're going to support you. This was a very, very top level summary. I've got a lot more information that I'm going to use to help you. But if you haven't already, Make sure you subscribe to our newsletter. Make sure you join our book club. We've got big plans and I want you to be a part of them because we're going to get into the nuance a little bit later. So let's wrap this up. What are the key messages here? 1. You're a leader even if no one uses that word about you. 2. Getting senior leaders to buy in is a huge challenge for so many of you. And 3. The 3 biggest problems remain helpful for finding solutions for you. So what do you think? Did any of this sound like you? Get in touch or leave a message. I would love to hear from you. If you've learned something from today's show, then give us a 5-star review and a comment wherever you're listening to the podcast. It helps other people like you to find the show. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.